Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us tonight on episode 39, season 4 of the Standoff with Brad and Richie here on New Zealand Sport Radio. We're usually here live every Wednesday on Facebook throughout the season, but the season's done, so it is our season finale tonight. May as well waste no time and bring Richie on. Evening, Richie. League's officially done for the year after 3 dominant victories by the Kiwis, PNG, and England. It's also our season finale, as I just mentioned. How are you, and how was your weekend?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Yeah, a little bittersweet. Last show of the year. Last time we're going to get to chat some footy, unless some life-altering news comes up, and we have to do a special. But yeah, I really enjoyed the footy on the weekend. How about you?
Yeah, I thought it was great. Happy to have been right on one of my picks. Technically 2. Because I thought England would do the job again, but I didn't see PNG doing what they did. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, great way to end the year. But while we're here live on Wednesday evenings, 8 p.m., you can also catch our show at your convenience on Spotify, iHeartRadio, all those places. Just remember to search for New Zealand Sport Radio. As always, we're going to cover everything you need to know on the week that was rugby league, including our top stories of the week, a review of the final week of internationals. We'll then answer some questions from you guys, as well as some questions we've prepared for each other. And since we've got absolutely nothing to preview, I thought we would end the show with kind of a little bit of our highlights of season 4. So it should be a good little chat to end the night. So remember to send us comments and questions throughout the show, and we may as well jump straight into top stories, Richie.
Okay, sounds good.
As is normally the case, as I mentioned to Paul before we jumped on, whenever we do a show, usually the big talking point news happens the next day. And that was the case last week with Adam Fanua-Blake requesting an immediate release from his contract with the Warriors so he could return to Sydney to be closer to his family. We discussed it that night when we were on Ruin Hammer's show. But since then, we've had further updates with AFB and the Warriors agreeing that he would remain with the club in 2024, with further discussions to be had on what happens in 2025. What's your thoughts? I know you've already talked about it a bit, but we've got more clarity. So What's your thoughts on AFB potentially jumping away?
Yeah, well, like you say, we didn't discuss it on our show last week. So initially, obviously, I was pretty distraught about the news. The development where he will stay next year, that's a good thing. The last thing I wanted to see after such a good 2023 was one of the main reasons we were really good disappear. And sort of set us back. But I'm happy he's going to remain in 2024. I hope whatever's going on in his personal life, he's able to manage it whilst still playing to a very high level. And we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah. As you said, I think my work probably wants to send a bill to the Warriors and AFB because my work productivity went down after that news leaked. The rest of that day, I was kind of in a bit of a daze. But I think I'm hoping that something happens where they manage to turn him around and he actually fulfills his entire contract. But having a year to actually plan and prepare to bring someone in, we did mention it on the Ruin Hammer show that he's not a player you can't replace him like for like. There's no one else out there. But I had a few people that I had penciled in that I would be interested in. Ideally, they were people I was interested in bringing in to join him, not to replace him. But we've got guys, it's been a lot in social media after the Kiwis performance, but Leo Thompson and Griffin Neem are 2 young Kiwis that they are contracted in 2025 to the Knights and Cowboys respectively. But, Adam Fanua-Blake was contracted with the Warriors in 2026. So, there could be a bit of wiggle room there, especially if you can Cowboys out of the question of dangling Adam Fanua-Blake, but Newcastle potentially. I'm not sure. It's all just rumors and speculation right now. But yeah, I think it's a lot better to have a year to work on it. So I feel a bit more calm because I was kind of panicking that the Warriors had a couple of months to kind of find someone to replace him. But yeah, I'm sure it's gonna probably be an ongoing story throughout 2024 when we're doing season 5 of the standoff, a bit like the Ben Hunt situation. Hopefully AFB is a bit more at peace with the decision rather than every week us reporting that he's trying to get out again. I don't think he will. It kind of sounds like they've drawn a line in the sand. So hopefully, the discussions happen behind closed doors for the most part. But adding to that, though, there was also another news drop from Stuff over here in New Zealand suggesting that another 2 players were going to make the same request to the Warriors shortly, but they didn't mention who. Mikey said AFB's parents crook. They haven't really discussed. They just said, there's been something with the family that requires him to be closer. So I would assume something like that potentially. But yeah, I can't say. But yeah, 2 other Warriors, Richie, apparently want to do the compassionate grounds and leave no mention on who. When you heard that news, did you have any names pop into your head on who it could be? Again, 100% speculating because,
not really. I mean, purely speculating. Perhaps somebody who maybe a couple of the Aussies who may be looking to get back home. That's obviously purely speculating. I don't know who else you'd look at might want to leave early on compassionate grounds or, on some whatever reason it is to get out of contract early. But for me, it's more the concern is that this seems to be happening to us quite a lot over the past couple of years. And I mean, I think it's just going to have to be part of our recruitment strategy going forward to, really look for people who really want to be here and want to be based out of NZ. Because, the early out requests are getting a bit tiresome.
Yeah, and I see Mikey's mentioned, he says Barnett and Metcalf. I had Lussick and Metcalf in my head spring to mind. As 2 younger guys, maybe. Barnett seems to have settled and seems to be happy, but you just don't know what's happening behind closed doors. But I'm sure if it actually goes through and those 2 players, whoever they be, actually request a release, if it's before season 5 starts, I'm sure we can jump on and do something talking about it if it happens. So we'll leave it there for now. But
I hope it's not Barnett, especially off the back of the heels of AFB wanting to leave. That would be worst case scenario.
Yeah, and Jacko said club must get tougher on these early get-outs. And I think they've made a step in the right direction by making having an agreement with Adam Fanua-Blake to at least play next year. I know it doesn't seem like you're making much of a stand, but this is a club that's kind of renowned for the moment someone really asks for a release, regardless of what it does to the club in terms of the squad, they let it happen. So I think there's a step in the right direction. There was the talk with Cameron George when Reece Walsh requested the release that they said they would release him if they found a suitable enough replacement. And then Chance happened, and they said if Chance wasn't wanting to come back to New Zealand, Reece would have been told to stick to his contract. But it's easy to do that tough line when you've already done the deal. So I don't know. Paul.
And you've got to be careful here as well around sort of having people who are homesick, etc. Isn't necessary. Is how much, what kind of performance you're going to be able to get out of them, even if they are trying. I think what it sounds like is they're being flexible with Fanua-Blake, which I think he's earned the the right for that as well. The way he's performed this season, it's like he's shown he can play. I'm assuming he's shown that from a off the pitch that he'll look after himself and be able to perhaps do some self training or solo training when he's got those extra days back in Sydney. So I think having that flexible attitude with players who have earned it, I think is a good way of trying to manage it, really.
Yeah, and the pathways they're putting in place now, obviously it's not going to happen straight away, but this will help with that a bit in the future because you have a bit more homegrown talent. So yeah, hopefully it comes. But yeah, you've got to pick and choose your battles. But a guy like AFB is a guy that you push and do what you can to make him stay because of what he delivers with the team. And yeah, Jacko's talking about homesick. Geez, Aussie 3 hours away, not on the moon. Yeah, I can't put myself in their situation because I live in New Zealand. My family's in New Zealand. My family lives, a decent enough drive away. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I don't, on the off chance that someone from the Warriors watches, I don't want to get in trouble. Yeah, I think it's a cop out. So I'll get in trouble anyway. I think it's a cop out. It's an easy way to get out. And I was actually, I'll bring it in. I saw Hammer was here. I was discussing with you and Ruin Hammer offline today a proposition about contracts, and players and clubs both break contracts. It happens all the time. Contracts not worth anything. But I was suggesting it'd be good if the NRL could bring something in where, say, I'll bring both situations up. So the Warriors let Josh Curran go early. They released him from his contract early. So in that situation, the Warriors, they decided they want to break the contract. They have to pay him out his contract. And then Adam Fanua-Blake wants to leave his contract early. He has to buy his contract to get out. I think if you brought something like that into play, we wouldn't see this happen as much. If you're Adam Fanua-Blake and you're told, you decide you want to go home, you go, okay, there's $2.2 million left on your contract. Pay it and go. And I see Robbie's asked, did my cousin in the NBL get homesick? No, that's actually a good analogy. My cousin's a professional basketballer. He's played in Cairns. He's played in Perth. He's currently playing right now in the UK. He doesn't, he's there to do a job. So he does it. Admittedly, his contracts aren't as long as an NRL one, but he goes to a place, does his job, and then when the contract's done, he comes home. And Hammer said that having gone through what I have with my dad, his parents are actually not well. I can understand why he wants to be closer to his parents. Yeah, I 100% get the reason, but you don't always know. You don't want to be that guy saying, I don't think they're sick or anything like that. But there might be some skullduggery. I'm not saying AFB is doing that. He didn't play that last game because we did talk about that last played game for Tonga. So I think he did come home from the tour.
That's one of the challenges we're going to face, being based where we're based as well. And if we're recruiting people whose families are all in Australia, there's always going to be that risk.
That's for everyone, though. If you're in Melbourne and your family's in Sydney and you have fit parents, Isaac Lumi was one.
Yeah. Yep.
His father wasn't well, and he gave up his contract and he ended up with the Bulldogs for a bit because his father was in Sydney. But he was willing to actually give up NRL, and I think that's kind of my sticking point here. You're not hearing someone say, I'm going to give up everything and be closer to family. They're like, no, I still want to be an NRL player. Chance is a good example. Chance is willing to come back to New Zealand and never play NRL again. He wanted to be back with his kids. And was very thankful that the Warriors decided to pick him up. But he's even come out in media and said he was willing to come and be a tradie or something. He just needed to be back in New Zealand. So
you want AFB to give up the NRL?
Yeah, if you're not playing for us, what's the matter, mate? Do I want to see him playing for the Dragons? No.
No.
But no, yeah. In all seriousness, we've got a year to figure it out now, at least. So we'll move on. You got me back onto that topic. The NRL are rumored to be planning on organising international games in New Zealand moving forward after a disappointing 13,500 fans went to the final in Hamilton. NZRL CEO Greg Peters has hit out over this report saying it's rubbish. While it wasn't a good look to have so many empty seats on view for the final in the Pacific Championship, TV cameras were pointed towards the less populated stand that was also the most expensive, and other areas were significantly fuller. They would have had a bigger crowd if they played at Mount Smart, which is again what we said when they played at Eden Park. But the NRL took a long time to confirm dates for the Pacific Championship, that by the time they were announced, Mount Smart was already booked with Rugby Union. So wasn't really much you could do there. But yeah, the ticketing pricing does not help. I was talking to Paul a few weeks back saying like the ticket pricing didn't look that bad. I only looked at the cheap seats. I didn't look at where I would like to sit, which was anywhere between $80 and $100. And I know a lot of people comparing it to the Warriors game in Hamilton that sold out. But those same seats that cost $80 to $100 were $45 for the Warriors game. So what's your take on it? I know the game last week in Melbourne, they had, I think, 23,000. So they didn't even sell out there. So it's a bit of a mix. I don't know I didn't get to see what the pricing in Melbourne was. But I've got friends who lived in Melbourne and they said it wasn't even advertised. They lived there and didn't know it was on. So if the NRL are looking after the Australian side and aren't advertising the game in Melbourne, will they really do much of a better job here? Because I know there wasn't a lot of advertising for it over here either.
No, and that's part of the issue. I mean, there's probably a few reasons why. I mean, we're at the end of a long season. Ticket prices, lack of promotion, or could be the championship could have been promoted better. But yeah, it was disappointing to see a half full stadium. That place should have been chocker for a final, and it should have been full to witness what ended up being one of the Kiwis' greatest ever victories and Australia's biggest defeat. So yeah, it's a shame, and we can only speculate whether it would have been a better crowd at Mount Smart now, but you think it would have been?
Yeah, and I saw Jacko made a comment earlier saying leagues, the working man's game, keep tickets cheap as possible. And I agree. That's the approach Cam George has done with the Warriors. Like he said, they're there to make money, right? But he said he'd much rather see cheaper tickets, meaning you get a sellout stadium, than having $100 tickets and having 10,000 people. And I think that's the approach. Like the New Zealand Rugby League, I assume they're the ones dictating the price. I can't honestly confirm that, but you want to sell it out, make it more affordable, especially, Richie, you go there with your kid. You pay $200 for tickets, and then you still got to spend a fortune on food and drink because, that's what kids do to you at those games. You can't justify. I didn't go myself. I couldn't justify the price, especially with the gas price, how much it cost me to get my gas guzzler down to Hamilton. But yeah, what do you reckon, Paul?
I think full stadiums mean that you're better off. You're going to get better sponsorship deals. You're going to do better. So hence your sponsors are going to be happier. You're going to get better money that way. It looks good on TV, so people are going to want to watch it because nobody wants to watch an empty stadium going, well, if no one can bother to turn up, why should I bother to watch it on telly? So again, you're going to get more people actually long term watching it on TV if you've got more people in the stands. So it's getting full stands. Do you make as much money on the tickets? No, but you might lose a little bit there, but you're going to make more in the long run because of better TV deal, and more sponsorship. Make more on the merchandise. You'll sell more jerseys and merchandising. Everything in that way is good. Robbie says, look, still bigger than a Super Rugby game. Yeah, look, Union couldn't organise Brisbane and Brewery as far as managing club rugby. Let's be honest. And he says he wonders what the advertising will be like in Vegas. Well, look, NRL will look after NRL, right? As I put in the live chat there, NRL wants the international rugby to die anyway, so they're not going to promote it. But NRL will look after NRL when it comes to Vegas. So there'll be plenty of advertising, I'm sure.
Yeah, and that's their baby. So that's their that's I think they've been more focused on that than the specific tournament anyway. But yeah, and Mark Roberts is here, and he said, stand tickets were $60 to $90 on the weekend, far too much. There was also no promotion work in the Tron, and we only found about the Meet the Players thing by the Mall Facebook page. Yeah, and and I think Jacko mentioned earlier as well that the loss last week probably didn't help either. The Kiwis got embarrassed in Melbourne, so any of those ones that were on the fence might have gone, I don't really want to pay all that money and watch the Kiwis get embarrassed again. Hindsight being a beautiful thing, we know that wasn't the case, but I think I don't know if it's maybe the fact that they don't get a lot of internationals, so they're trying to make more money quickly rather than thinking of the bigger picture. But we're meant to be getting regular internationals, so hopefully we see some improvement on what they charge. Because it's tough, especially the Warriors release all their new merch and then you got no money left. But we'll move on. We spent almost 20 minutes on the first two news topics. We're going for a record here. Tongan coach Christian Wolff is weighing up his future as Tonga's coach after his team went down 3-0 against England, saying there's plenty to consider, but he'll wait and see. I think he'll stick around because I don't see anyone else taking the mantle. In all honesty, Richie.
Yeah, you're right there. I don't really, unless there's probably some candidates in the background, but I wouldn't mind seeing them stay. And obviously they haven't had a great series, but over the past few years, Tonga's scaled some heights they haven't reached before. I'm hoping we're not seeing a decline of them after what we've seen on this latest tour, but some consistency in coaching and getting the group together more. You hope that they gives them foundation to build off.
Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see there. And I know you've got a question about Tonga for me later, so I'll leave it there. Speaking about one more bit about Tonga, Will Hopewadi's announced his retirement from rugby league, and no one's noticed. But good luck with whatever he's doing next, I guess. Had a storied career playing for, it feels like, everybody. But you got any thoughts on Hopewadi before we move on?
No, just wish him the best in retirement. Like you say, I didn't notice until I saw you put it in the news, and then I saw it pop up. But it's wish him all the best.
Yeah. Elliot Whitehead's kind of gone along the same trick. He's retired, but only from representative footy. Got a stat say he played 27 games for England and 4 for Great Britain. Guess he's at that time in his life where you can't do both. There's a guy playing for the Kangaroos that probably should have thought about that a few years ago. But yeah,
why can't he do both? This is one I don't understand. He's only 27.
Mate, that's old. That's old.
It's really not.
Do you want to play for England?
I'm not Elliot Whitehead, and I'm not English. If I was, you bet I would. Because for me, they crashed out of the World Cup up until that Samoa semi-final. Though they were going really well, and the series have gone really well. So I wouldn't mind seeing them test themselves against the Kiwis and Aussie. But yeah, he's obviously got his reasons. I don't know whether he's multiple seasons in the NRL has taken the toll on his body and doesn't want to add any extra to that. But yeah,
you've also got that what's what's tall his body be. But it's not like it's not like there's like 10 international games a season or anything like that. It's
exactly
like
right.
a couple of extra games. So it seems a bit strange in saying, you can't do both. If the international schedule was bigger, I'd agree with him. But for 3 games, seems a bit much.
Let people be people, guys. Jeez. He doesn't want to play for that crappy team up north, and he wants to stay in the beautiful weather of Canberra.
Okay, Richie, you know what? We're not allowed to have opinions anymore, so shut up.
No. Kind of flowing on the exact opposite of that, Kieran Foran's confirmed that he wishes to keep playing for the Kiwis, but said that the final against the Kangaroos is not the worst way to end his international career if it winds up being his last. So we've got another one holding on by a thread with injuries and whatnot, still wanting to plug away and play for the Kiwis. So the exact opposite.
Pretty much.
If he wants to, same as Elliot Whitehead.
International games. If they make, I think it also depends on how much they're making per game as well.
I think that's probably a part of it too. We did talk about it last week about all the amazing money that the Kangaroos are getting now, but they haven't released what Kiwis, England, and the Island teams are getting. I think England and Kiwis might be getting it right, but I heard that the English rugby league couldn't afford to get everyone over to England in first class, so they asked the players to help pay to get them there. So that might have made Elliot Whitehead think about it if the team he's playing for can't afford to get him there. But yeah.
Oh yeah, it shouldn't be. Look, it's pay to play, right? It's not you're being paid to play, not I have to pay you to let me play.
Yeah,
but it's pay to go first class, but I guess you want them fit. And Jacko said Foran's a Kiwi, not a Pom. That's the difference. Yeah, I don't know. Paul might want to.
No, look, if he had to pay for his own flight, I get it now. When you
he had to pay for part of his flight, Paul. I don't want to shame him that much. He just had to chip in.
Jeez,
No,
sorry, but if you're playing international footy, it should be covered.
So that might help. I know the Kiwis didn't have to pay to fly to New Zealand, and Simon said he doesn't think they get paid enough pounds. I don't think they get paid a lot to play for England. In fairness, but going off that, players from both the Kiwis and the Kangaroos have come out calling for more test matches and the return of the Anzac Clash. It's something we've been talking about forever, Richie, but it's good to see that once the Kangaroos actually lose a game, they actually are interested in trying to play. When they were winning every game, they didn't really care. The return of the Anzac Clash, I would like to see it, but I don't think that will ever happen again because they're always focused on Origin, getting into Origin that time of year. So I would like to see it, but I don't mind the compromise with the Warriors playing on Anzac Day against Melbourne, especially if they do bring it to New Zealand next year. But I want to see the more international. I still like the idea of a couple internationals in an Origin break in the middle, like we had for a little while. But with the Origin eligibility, that kind of throws it out because the Poms aren't going to want to come down for a couple of weeks in the middle of the season, and Samoa and Tonga and all their big names are playing in Origin, so they won't want to play the Kiwis. And then if it's Fiji or Papua New Guinea, no offense to them, it's not as competitive as a series. So I feel like it would go backwards for their teams potentially. But they've said they're going to try to make more games, but it's all at the back end of the year, and a lot of fans are kind of over it at the end. Kiwis are always getting on board, but 9 times out of 10, footy's ended for us a couple of months before internationals anyway. But this year it was different. It felt like it was kind of straight into it. But Yeah, I'm always asking for more. It's just when and where. It's basically whatever the NRL dictates, they're allowed to do. So time will tell. But if the players are harping on about it now, hopefully it makes some traction. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'd love to see more Kiwis and Kangaroos clashes, provided the home ground advantage is rotated. We have seen in the past when we had more fixtures, it seemed to be much like the Melbourne and Warriors Anzac Day clashes, only hosted in one place, and it's not our home ground. So
Yeah.
Just to be fair, you want it rotated, and hopefully we wind up with a better crowd than what we saw in Hamilton on the weekend.
Yeah, and Jacko said until the NRL season shortened, Test footy will suffer. And unfortunately, I think they're just going to keep making the NRL season longer and longer. But yeah, that could be, like Paul said earlier, that could be their overall plan.
Well, if you get up towards 20 teams with a couple more expansions, why couldn't you just have a round robin playing each team once?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the way I would look at it once you get more teams in. Yeah, Paul said, what about the Anzac Day game rotating? We talked about it last week, Paul. They actually might let New Zealand Warriors have a home Anzac game for the first time in a long time. So we might get towards it being a rotating thing, or it might just be a one-off where they go, look what we did for you guys, and then go back to Melbourne every year. I'm not sure. We'll keep going. Mal Meninga is close to extending as Kangaroos coach. One loss isn't enough to, throw him out of his role. I think it makes sense to keep him on. I think he's just got to be a bit tougher with his team selections and actually pick good players that are playing well as opposed to just guys that have done the job for him before. I know that does work from time to time, but yeah, I think there's a few players in this Kangaroos side that have outstayed their welcome. But yeah, we'll go into that a bit later in my question to you.
Yeah.
Next bit of news, Jacko said he'll be astounded if Warriors get Anzac game at home. Yeah, it hasn't been confirmed, but that was the noise coming out last week that it looks like we're going to get it. But I think it's in a couple of weeks when they announce the draw, we'll find out. But yeah, we can dream.
See it.
Yeah. Next bit of news, NRLW Knights coach Ron Griffiths has stood down from his role. He's now going to be the New South Wales Cup side coach for the Knights. So good movie. He's won back-to-back titles with the Knights. So let's see if he can make the New South Wales Cup team better. So good luck with him there. You got anything to add to that, Richie?
Well, he's got good credentials, doesn't he? Coming off a back-to-back title-winning team. So yeah. The New South Wales Cup side will be hoping he can bring some of that magic their way.
Definitely. And we talked about it a few weeks ago, but Carl Olawapu was weighing up if he needed surgery on his neck or not. A neurosurgeon's now confirmed with him that he does need surgery. But on a brighter note, he's been advised that he will be able to play NRL again. So it's, unfortunate you have to have the surgery, but good that it's going to end up helping him out in the long run. So they haven't said when the surgery will take place, but I think they said if he had to have surgery, he'd be out for all of 2024, looking at a 2025 return. So hopefully everything goes well for him and he has a speedy recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pretty scary sort of injury, no doubt about that. And he's only a young chap too, who's got some pretty big reps on him. So yeah, fingers crossed he pulls through and comes back bigger and better.
Yeah, and then we've got a little bit of coaching news before we go into signings. So Dolphins coach Wayne Bennett's confirmed that he's open to all offers from 2025 onwards, and will consider anything he can to remain in the game. So I feel like he might just make a gig out of being the first coach for all the new teams that come in. So like 2025 is up, he'll go coach the PNG team if that's it. And then when the next team comes up, he'll go coach them. I feel like he's going to be in a coaching capacity in some way right up until his last day on earth.
Until the wheels fall off.
I feel like that's just the type of guy he is. And there's always going to be someone that wants to pick him up. It's fair to say the Dolphins did better than many expected under him in this first year. So
yeah, he hasn't lost his touch, has he? He's still got well.
There was some moments, and there were times a few years ago where I said the game may have passed him by, but he seemed to find his way back. So, be interesting to see where he goes after his contract ends with the Dolphins. Because the Dolphins did say their plan was when they signed him at the end of that contract, Christian Wolf was taking over. So it's not like he's going to get extended there. Mikey said Wayne to coach Warriors girls.
Oh, yes, please.
Be a dream. It'd be a dream to have him involved in the club somehow. I'm pretty happy with the head coach they've got for the men. But yeah, if you had a guy like him with all that knowledge in your club, it's a hell of a resource. But I don't see him moving to New Zealand.
We saw what happened when he assistant coached the Kiwis.
Exactly. So I'm sure. I have a feeling he'll end up involved with the new team that gets brought in. That's just my feeling on it. I feel like that's probably something the NRL would try to nudge whoever the new team is going. You've got one of the most experienced guys around. Let's bring him in to help you hit the ground running. Pure speculation on my point. But next one, Papua New Guinea coach Justin Holbrook believes his side's Pacific Bowl win will launch the nation forward, and he believes more NRL clubs should get PNG talent or give PNG talent a chance. I think you should, if you see a talented player, regardless of where they come from, you should try to bring them into the fold. But maybe I know there's issues with visas from PNG to Australia, so that could be something that's holding them back in some cases. I'm not educated enough on the country and politics side of things there, but that's also is that something where you're worried about them asking for early releases to go home? I don't know.
The way that the Australian government and the New Zealand government are throwing money, not throwing money, but spending money on various sort of union things with Pacific nations to try and help politically. I can see if I was NRL, I'd go and have a chat with Canberra and say, hey, can we have a special visa requirement for rugby league players, please, or for sports players from PNG? It would be good for
league visa
relations.
Yeah, create the league visa. There's some talent there, so I think they should, if they see something, do what they can to bring it in. What do you reckon, Richie?
Yeah, well, there's definitely some people. There's a couple, probably when we discuss the bowl final and do the review there. There's a player or two that I was going to talk about that I think would make a good NRL player. So he's got a point there, but also tread carefully. Just a week prior, we were talking the other way about how worrying their big loss might be for their NRL aspirations. But there's obviously league mad nation, and there are a couple of standouts I think in their team that aren't in NRL that would make an impact, I think.
Yeah, and like Jacko said, the Aussie government's already said they'll spend several million, up to 25, to get a PNG team in the NRL. Yeah, so I assume part of this is going to be looking at the visas to let the PNG players actually do it, because there's no point throwing all that money in and then no PNG players can move to Cairns where this team's meant to be starting. It would be an oversight that only a government could do, I would say. Last bit of news before we go into signings. Seagulls coach Anthony Seibold has said that Manly are in discussions to potentially sign current Rooster Nathan Brown. Nathan Brown was kind of, a regular with the Eels, left there quickly and went to the Roosters, where he basically became a reserve grader, and now could get a lifeline going to Manly. it's kind of been a little bit of a fall from grace for Brownie. I don't know what happened, but I feel like if he went to the Sea Eagles, he'd actually get used more. So it wouldn't be a bad decision for him to go. Manly will sign anyone. They've just apparently offered a New South Wales Cup contract to Aaron Woods. So we'll see what happens. But what's your thoughts on Nathan Brown potentially becoming a Sea Eagle?
Yeah, I don't think it would be a bad fit. I think we saw it stages, particularly when they pick up a couple of injuries. Their depth gets tested up the middle. So somebody with experience like Nathan Brown, who, is nice and aggressive as well, I think it would be a decent enough fit.
Yeah, and Jacko mentioned that he watched Brown in New South Wales Cup at Mount Smart, and he didn't look like a first grader that day. Yeah, I was my little sister had come up to that game, and I was trying to explain to her that he was like a big name, in quotations, first grade player playing in reserve grade, but he just looked like one of the young guys there. Like he didn't stand out, which you kind of expect from your experienced first graders when they go down a grade, that they kind of carve up. Wasn't the case. So yeah, I don't know if that's a lack of confidence or.
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe he just needs to find his mojo again. I've seen some years where he's looked like a beast coming on off the bench. So yeah, he might be just finding his mojo again.
Yeah. So we'll move into signings. There wasn't really much until today. So the Roosters have reportedly signed or are trying to sign Michael Jennings on a training trial for 2024. It's pending NRL approval. So I assume it will get the tick. He's coming back from his drug ban. And he said he wants to end his NRL career on his own terms. So he wants to get another shot. So good luck to him with the Roosters. And then the Bulldogs, they decided to take all the news today, mate. They signed 4 players. They signed Drew Hutchinson, Kurt Mann, Jake Turpin, and Pawasa Famasili on 2-year deals. Nothing game-breaking out of those signings to say. Interesting little signings. It just looks like you're trying to fill some holes in the roster. Out of all of them, I'd say Jake Turpin's probably the most interesting one. He's got potential. When he's in the right form, he's actually quite good. Hutchinson on his day he can do something for you. And Mann and Pawasa are just kind of everyday players now. They're just kind of sit there and will fill a spot if injuries happen. What do you reckon about all these signings?
I'm really interested to see in what capacity they look at using Hutchison. He covers a number of positions, but when the Roosters actually moved him into 7 for a period, he actually looked good there, and that's one area where the doggies are lacking for sure. So I'm interested to see if that's what they have in their plans for him. Other than that, it's good depth for them anyway. They got hit hard with the injury stick this year, and I think their season was derailed pretty quickly after that, and they never recovered. So, it might help them in that area.
Yeah, and I'm not going to make fun of them for their signings because I've learnt my lesson after what we said. I'm not going to throw you under the bus. What I said about Jackson Ford when that news was announced by the Warriors. So it might be a masterstroke by old Gus. So we'll wait and see what happens with those players. So we'll move into injuries, mate. We had a couple. Yeah. So Warrior and Kiwi Chance Nickel-Klukster. He played the past 2 weeks with broken ribs.
Very brave.
It wasn't talked about until after the end of the final where he got player of the match. We'll be fine for the beginning of 2024 for the Warriors, which is good, but just add it to the list of the accolades you give that guy. And Paul said brave or dumb.
There's a fine line between brave and dumb.
There's a fine line. It's fine. I'd say it's dumb if something really bad happened. but I feel like that was a situation.
Yeah, but
Maguire.
that's wonderful 2020 hindsight, right? Oh
Yeah,
shit,
but that's
it was
the
really
beauty.
dumb because he punched his lung. Oh dear.
That's fine. Yeah. You got two though, right? You got two lungs. So, but yeah, I think if it was super serious, it'd be fine. I'm sure, Paul, you've played many a times with broken ribs yourself. I'm sure. I know I have. But
Hell
it's
no.
okay. I have. Richie, did you ever play with broken ribs?
No, can't say I
Okay,
have, but
'cause
I'm not a front rower like you are. You
I'm
know,
I'm more on the dumb side than the brave side, though, I will say. um, but it's yeah. Full credit to him though. I'll go with him.
I think when you end up with a 30-0 win over the Kangaroos and get player of the match, you can then say it's brave.
Yeah.
Like you say.
I could see that being kind of that would numb the pain.
Yes, it would.
Yeah. But yeah, and unlike our brave Chans, Cam Murray had a little hamstring niggle and decided not to play. So he's more on the cowardly and smart side of the spectrum, I guess. If we're doing brave and dumb on the other side. So, but he will still be sweet to kick off 2024. Victor Radley had a groin strain, so he missed the third test for England against Tonga. Also should be fine to play. And then Taruva from Fiji and the Panthers, he missed that last game with a calf injury that's been kind of affecting him through this whole tournament.
Yeah, they missed him, didn't they?
Yeah, and he too should be fine to kick off in round one. So nothing major there. Chance was probably the biggest one. Naughty Boy Corner, there was potentially going to be some bans, but I believe last time I checked, it had been reduced to fines. So not much to say there. Just from Fiji and PNG, Kiwis were well behaved and Australia didn't show up, so there was nothing to really ping them for there. So we may as well jump straight into those games, starting with the first one, with the Kiwis defeating the Kangaroos 30-0, Richie.
Oh, yeah, that sounds so good. 5 tries to zip. Ronaldo Mulitalo, Jermaine Isako with 2, Matthew Timoko, and Griffin Neame with the 5 try scores for the Kiwis.
One of the greatest prop tries I've seen for the Kiwis with a
wasn't it?
sidestep there. It was beautiful. But yeah, we talked about Griffin Neame just there. Forwards set the platform. I was quite savage on the forwards last week. And yeah, they completely turned it around. They made up for everything I complained about last week. They never let the Kangaroos breathe. On top of that, with them doing everything they did there, the backs looked more crisp and made the most of every opportunity they got. They were breaking lines, breaking tackles, breaking everything. Fingers crossed that the squad stays together because they could have a good run in the World Cup. Your thoughts on the Kiwis?
It's a massive turnaround. I felt like we set the tone from the very first set. Fisher Harris, the crunching hitter. You got an indication right there and then how the boys looked up for it, and surprisingly we dominated the middle after we didn't get on top of their second string forward pack last week. But we did. We dominated the middle, and the backs were able to do damage off the back of it and hand the Kangaroos their biggest ever loss.
Yeah, and for the Pacific Cup tournament, the Kiwis are 18-0 in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So that's not bad. They defend really well. We're on home soil, which is good. But yeah, your thoughts on the Kangaroos? All those people pretending to be them out there.
Yeah, I feel like complacency was their worst enemy here. They just didn't bring the same intensity and attitude that we brought. Some of the stats, and this shows how well our middle did, barely any of their forwards went for 100 running meters, depending on whose stat sheets you read, which website you're on. Payne Haas only getting 100 run meters. Show me another game where that's happened. Stats like that, they're just unheard of. So obviously, Kangaroos, I feel like they're a bit complacent and really under par. But it also shows how well we went.
Yeah, they I think they came in believing the hype because of the domination they did the week before and everyone writing the Kiwis off. I will say, everyone wrote them off. We both picked the Kiwis in our preview last week. So we didn't read the memo. We said the Kiwis would win. I didn't think that much. I think I said to a chat with you, Rue and Hammer, that on their show when they asked us, I was going to be a dick and say 24-0. But I didn't. I didn't say any score prediction. I just said Kiwis will win. And then as it was heading that way, it was like, oh, damn it. I would have looked really smart for once in my life. But yeah, Kangaroos, they just never showed up. I got some of their stats. They made 12 errors, 51 missed tackles, and the big returns of Payne Haas and Big Tino made no impact. I saw Jacko said that Haas and Tino were just lazy. Yeah, I think the week off really didn't help them. I think, as you saw, the Kiwis, they didn't change. They're, the same 17 all 3 games, and it showed in this. They were all linked in together. Jacko said Grant ran for 3 meters. There was a stat, I think it was from the Rugby League Guru. He was talking about Chance. Chance had run for the same amount of running meters James Tedesco did in the whole game in the first 20 minutes. And that's what you expect out of Chance. Just goes out there and, gives it everything he's got. But they were all like that. They were dominating left, right, and center. I don't think there was any position you could say that Kangaroo was better than their Kiwi counterpart. Which is crazy to see. Like, I was confident the Kiwis would get the win. I didn't think they would do what they did. It was almost a replica, I think, of the game last week, but just roles reversed. And the Kangaroos, I guess the positive you can get out of it is they'll be looking for a revenge, which we've already seen, as we mentioned, they won't actually start playing games again. So, fantastic game to watch. I'm very happy for me and my fandom for my season to end on that game. I know there was still 2 more games, but as a Kiwi fan, that was my season ended on that game. So I was very happy it ended that way. Players to stand out. I had a feeling the guy you picked was going to get picked, which is why I went with Chance. So I went with Chance, the player of the day. We've talked wax lyrically about his efforts, so I don't think I need to add any more to that. But your player to stand out, I had already penciled in before the game was over as my guy. But yeah, who'd you pick?
It was tough, actually, because I think everyone went so well, and you could almost have said anyone in the forward pack as well and not been wrong. But I put Mulatalo. I thought particularly his first half was just out of this world, and he was just doing everything out there. Line breaks, scored a nice try.
Some good defensive efforts.
The shot he put on Valentine Holmes was crazy. I that's one of the better efforts I've ever seen him produce. So
he played the way I expected him to play for the Sharks when I had him as my leading try scorer in my predictions. But yeah, I thought he was fantastic. And I think there was some interview he did after the game where he said, like, in the previous game, he got a bit of social media hate, and his family did as well, getting sent like hateful comments and death threats and stuff all over how he played. And he wanted to prove everyone wrong. I don't think you should ever get to that point as a fan. I think it's a bit sad if you can be passionate, but willing death on people because they didn't perform well in a game is a bit out of there. In the heat of the moment in my own house, it might be different behind closed doors, but never on going out of my way to contact someone. But yeah, great to see him play well. And yeah, as Jacko said, 2023 has been a great year for the Warriors and Kiwis fans. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hell of a year. So, yeah, very happy to be the first ever holders of the Pacific Cup and handing the Kangaroos their worst ever defeat. Then we'll move on to the next game where PNG copied the Kiwis and righted a lot of wrongs and defeated Fiji 32-12.
They did indeed. This one was 5-2. Edwin Ipape, however you pronounce it. Robert Derby with 2. Alex Johnston and Ipu Kapanias were the 5-try scorers for the Kumals. For the Bati, Wanga Blake got both of theirs.
Yeah, PNG, they made a lot of errors, which has been a common theme for them all this tournament, but they were so dominant in that first half. Very physical display, as you always expect. With them, some massive efforts from their backs. I thought they took their foot off in the gas in the second half again, but the damage was already done. And good for PNG to get that win and winning the Pacific Bowl at home. Your thoughts on PNG?
Yeah, pretty similar, mate. I just like the Kiwis versus Kangaroos match. We got a complete reversal from the previous week. This week it was the Kumals who had all the intent and points in them. 26-0 at half time. You couldn't wish for a better first half. This week it was the Kumals' turn, and they showed up at the right time, much to the delight of the crowd. PNG managed to pick up a dominant win and the first Pacific Bowl.
Yeah, and your thoughts on the Fiji Bati?
The Bati, they just didn't seem at the races in this one. And it kind of completes a very up and down bowl championship that saw them nearly lose to Cook Islands in the first round, only to thrash the Kumals last week, and then now another off week when it mattered most. So that's the Bati's biggest concern, is sort of the inconsistency there.
Yeah,
that's Brad freezing at 8:55 again. Like clockwork.
Like clockwork. Am I back? Yeah. As always, Sparker working with me, saying 5 to 9, I lose internet. I don't know what's going on. But I'm back. Fiji, they struggled to find their feet in that first 40. Did start to make some inroads in the second half, but the error rate did them in the end. Some good experience and lessons from this series, I think, will help them improve. It's just, I've been saying it every week. They just need more games. They've had 3 games and that's it. And it was, as you said, up and down. But yeah, your player to stand out.
I put Edwin Ipape. Don't even know how to pronounce it, but he's good. Even in the World Cup, I think he looks really good, and he's one of the blokes I mentioned I thought wouldn't look out of place in the NRL side. I mean, a lot of these NRL teams could do worse than have a dummy half like him. He does a lot right. Looks like a very damaging player, but he's a standout for me in that team.
Yeah, I thought he was great. I almost picked him, but I didn't know how to say his name properly, and I couldn't learn it quick enough. So I don't want to offend anyone else with my poor pronunciation. So I went with Robert Derby. That's a nice name I can say. He got the double. He looked really good. He looked dangerous. He's another one that you could see make it into NRL given the chance. So yeah, very, very happy there. And congrats again to PNG for being the first holders of the Pacific Bowl. Move to our favourite game, the game that we never get to watch. England going 3-0, defeating Tonga 26-4.
Yeah, this one pretty dominant. 4-1 in England's favour. Ben Curry, Matty Ashton, Elliot Whitehead in his last international, and Harry Newman. And the 1 try for Tonga was our mate Ali Katoa.
Yeah, see, and here you go, Paul. The reason Elliot Whitehead retired, he got a try. He was like, I'm done. I don't need to do no more. As we've said, still can't watch it live or get a decent replay in time. I think it's on YouTube. We can watch it on YouTube right now, but in time to actually do a review for the show, it's not ideal. So can't judge it well. again. But I feel like it's rinse and repeat what's happened in the previous two matches. Too many errors and penalties from Tonga to give themselves a shot, and England just do what they need to do to get the job done. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I didn't watch. I watched the highlights like you. So from what I can make of it, some really nice tries from England, who, from what I can tell, looked even more dominant this week, and aided by some pretty poor discipline from Tonga. I think during the week I sent you a clip of Conrad Harrell's sin bin, and
it was disgusting. I
just
don't understand
stuff.
how he was sent to the sin bin for a legitimate tackle.
The return of thug life.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
It was perfectly fine. There might have been a few
swinging arms,
haymakers in there, but
a few haymakers.
You got to swing your arm to make the tackle. It's just all part of it.
I don't think swinging with a closed fist is what you meant to do, though, Brad.
I think he was just trying to protect his fingers so he didn't get a broken finger in the tackle. We saw what happened with Josh Curran in that tackle for the Warriors where it dislocated his finger. So Conrad's learning. But protecting your fingers. But yeah, and Jacko said, Tonga is disappointing, could hurt them in future retaining players. Yeah, which kind of segues us out of these into our questions, because your question has to do with that. But I think we've got some questions from other people first. So Paul, do you have any other questions?
Well, I'm eating, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that in the background, so I was like, I'll throw it in. And geez, Brad has another man crush on Jacko, on Connie. I'd loved Connie for a long time.
Brad's always had a man crush on Connie.
Yeah.
Sorry, so yeah, if you had to swap, who would you swap Adafino Blake for?
Robbie's probably already left, but I mentioned it. I want Leo Thompson from the Knights. I think for the money you pay Adam Finau-Blake, you could pay enough to get Griffin Neame and Leo Thompson. Those are the top two in my forward list. You got guys like Fisher Harris, Moses Leota, Spencer Leniu. That would be great, but you'll never get them.
There's the people you want, and then there's realistic ones, right?
Realistic targets, yeah.
Spencer Leniu is potentially the only one. If he finds out he doesn't like the Roosters, he might be tempted to come home. But yeah, I think Leo Thompson, Griffin Neame are ideal targets. They're young, they're doing well, got plenty of years left, and they're Kiwi boys that not only are from here, but they actually really care about playing for the Kiwis too. So it's all part of the brand the Warriors are trying to build, being like a Kiwi team. So those are the two I would make that are believable attempts.
Robbie also said, should the Warriors target union players? Well, I mean, they're getting RTS next week.
We did. We got RTS. We did it. Well done. And Rocco Berry, we do target union players. We just target the right ones, I guess.
And I think what happens is that a lot of them are targeted from school rather than waiting them to be professional union players and then get them. So, I've forgotten who, but the centre who played for Wellington, who's gone overseas now. Anyway, but yeah, so there's I think that's when it happens over here. Simon wants to ask which teams your cousin play for in the UK, because you can watch them. They're all available on YouTube. Those games apparently.
The Himmel, you'll know because you're a Pom. Himmel Storm, Hemel. Is that how the Pom say it? Do they say Himmel, or is it like Hummel, or is it a silent H, or whatever the hell they do?
Hemel, yeah. I mean, Hemel Hempstead, if that's where they're playing, if that's where he is. But that seems like a weird place to have it's not like a major place. But anyway, okay, interesting.
It's the Himmel Storm. They're based. I'm googling now. You people. They're based in Hemel Hempstead.
Hemel Hempstead. Yeah, so Hemel Hempstead. So Hemel Storm. Yeah.
Yeah. Hemel. Yeah. So that's who he plays for.
Cool. So yeah, go folks. Did you guys answer my question that I put to you by text last week or not?
We did. Of course, we did.
Yeah,
we're professional.
Oh. Then
you were very thankful to not here to see the answer because we ripped you apart. Stupid union people asking stupid questions.
It's one way of getting the NRL to be interested in international rugby, you see.
Yeah, they wouldn't want to do it. They're scared. You imagine if I think we'll cover it a little bit again. Said one of the things I said is it makes the Kiwis look bad if New South Wales or Queensland beat them. But you imagine the rip roar if the Kiwis wipe the floor with one of those Origin teams, because Origin's the so-called pinnacle.
Yeah, no, I agree. But
We
were talking a couple of weeks back about being about the Kangaroos having enough to put out two teams. That would be one way that they could put out two teams. Was my?
I was wrong though, Paul, because their best team couldn't even win. So I don't know. I was wrong.
I mean, there's losing and there's not even scoring a point. I mean, so that's the questions from the live chat, guys.
All right. So cheers for that, guys. And Richie, we'll go with your one first because we're kind of already talking about it. So
yeah, I just wanted to ask you what do you think? What do you think of the reasons for Tonga seemingly falling off so badly this year, despite looking a strong team on paper and the way they've trended since their breakout World Cup and having people defect to them, Jason Taumalolo. We saw that huge rise, and then this year we've seen them go over to England, thinking it'd be a competitive tour, and it just wasn't.
I'm going to feel like a bit of a dick, but Tonga improved, but they were never, great. They were still, they got better, but we always had the same questions. Like they got a great forward pack, they got some electric backs, but they got no halves.
Yeah.
And when you don't have a spine, you can't expect to be week in, week out great. And, they did, that revolution when AFB went over Tomalolo. Tomalolo is not the same player when he jumped ship. He wasn't even playing in this tournament, was he?
Don't know. Haven't been able to watch.
So I know AFB didn't play in the last game, but Tomalolo wasn't playing at all, I don't think. I'm just looking now. But yeah, it's part of it. It's hard doing a tour over to England. Hold on, I've got round 2. Yeah, no. So yeah, JT, one of the guys you mentioned, he's not there. Yeah. But a lot of their players weren't there. Like they got a young guy in Katoa in the halves, which I think he's going to be fantastic, just in time. But you got Lolo here, who is a superstar in the Super League, but he couldn't even look good in the Tigers when he was in the NRL. He's not, quality. Admittedly, they're playing. I don't even know who Mikey Lewis is, who was the 5'8" for England. So, but they had quite a few players that didn't play in this tour, which didn't help them. But, even when they hit that rise, they lost to England in the World Cup final. So, I think they're better, but I think the first 2 games are at least a little bit competitive, and you could argue if they were better with their handling and their discipline, they might have got the wins, where that last one, they just never looked at. So I think they're still competitive, but in hindsight, you basically still look at Australia, New Zealand, England as the big 3, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Samoa made an upset. They got to the final, they beat England, but then we beat them 50-0 a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
There's this highlights and lowlights with them, which is always going to be the case until they get a rounded roster.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard. I didn't really answer. It's a strong looking team on paper, but they don't play enough together and they've got no spine. So,
what I would have said is along the same lines. They don't have the right players in the positions that matter. Tonga has a silver lining with people like Isaiah Katoa, who I think has got a big future and will one day that Tonga will reap the benefits of him. But at this point in time, no. And when you looked at Samoa when they lost to us 50-0, you look at their spine. You take Luai out of their team, and they don't really have a competitive enough spine. they'll always have the forward packs. Tonga's forward pack is stacked full of high quality NRL players, but the positions that matter, it's where they're lacking.
Yeah, and like Jacko said, it's a test for Tonga and Samoa. Easy to get players when winning, but losing makes it hard to keep players interested. And Simon also said it's England's fourth game this year because they did get to play France early in the season. Yeah, this is the Tongan team's first game since the World Cup, and they were disappointing in the World Cup as well. I think everyone's still trying to remember the World Cup previous where they were fantastic. They were a huge failure in the last World Cup. They were predicted to be contenders to take the whole thing out, and never looked in it. Samoa were the surprise. So, but next year Samoa, if they've got a healthy Jerome Luai, Chanel Harris Tavita might join them in the halves potentially. That spine looks a bit better. Tonga is still a long way away. They need to find another half to join Katoa quickly. But yeah.
Until they've got their own NRL team, until they've got their own pathways of bringing players through, they're going to be boom and bust. They're going to have times when they suddenly get a bunch of players together, they do well. But unless you've got that pipeline where you're actually trying to build a team, trying to bring players through to fill holes, you're not going to be able to have sustained success.
Yeah. And I saw there was another question from Bjorn before we go into my question for you. We saw James Fisher-Harris try a grubber kick. As a resident prop, have you ever tried to kick, and was your license taken off you? No, I think kicking's cheating, so I don't kick.
Yeah, I can confirm. I don't think I've ever seen Brad kick a ball. Brad and
I've done drop goals on my own when no one's watching, but never in a game situation.
Brad and I used to take a footy along to Warriors games and chuck it around in the car park before going up to our seats. And not a lot of kicking. Some pretty flashy passes, but not a lot of kicking.
Yeah, definitely a brilliant passer of the ball, but I keep it away from my two left feet as much times as possible. And he should never have done it. I think that was on the third tackle too. It was. He should never have done it, and he should never have done it at that time. Thankfully, it didn't matter in the long term things, but had some interesting chat in our little chat group when that happened. But yeah, and my question for you though, mate, before we trail off into random topics again, 2023's been a very poor year for James Tedesco. Do you think it's time for him to step down from Origin and internationals, or do you think he can bounce back? I know I'm very biased. I've been saying he shouldn't be playing for New South Wales for the past 2 years. But in terms of Kangaroos, you got Reece Walsh, Dylan Edwards.
Yeah.
You name them. There's so many.
I don't think he's going to want to step down from internationals, but I think he should have that choice made for him. If I were Mal Meninga or if I was the Aussie coach, I'd be having Walsh or Ponga ahead of him, just on form and just what they offer. And I think the 30-0 result we've handed them should be the line in the sand where they look to carve out a new path, and they're missing Cleary this series, and he would have made a difference. But then you add in Walsh. Ponga, one Dally M couldn't even crack the team.
That is a trend with Mal Meninga. He doesn't pick Dally M's because he didn't take the Dally M winner to the World Cup either.
Yeah. But I mean, there's got to be an element of picking on form as well, and picking what's worked before works to a point. But I think the 30-0's got to be a line in the sand, and players like James Tedesco, I wouldn't pick him if Walsh and Ponga are available, or even Tommy Turbo. There's a number of fullback options I think who offer a lot more.
I think
from Origin though, I think he's still going to be in with a shot because he doesn't have your Walshes and Pongas to contend with. But even then, I still think he's got some pretty quality options to fight for his jersey.
Yeah. Well, you just talked about Tommy Turbo.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that you can name 3 or 4 fullbacks that you would pick in front of him in the Kangaroos already shows that, maybe it is time. Like he's the captain and all that, and it's it's hard for a guy that's done so much to say like we've got to move on from you. But it's not about friendships and relationships. It's about trying to win football games. You pick the team you can.
A lot of potential captains in that squad too.
There's lots of captains all over the place. But I would be dropping him myself. But I've been calling for it for a while. But I'm happy they're not, because I think it's at the detriment of their teams when they pick him. He's a fantastic player, but I think his X factor that he brought in the past is gone. And you kind of need that. But it's my turn to sneeze this week. I expect to see him still playing until he says no. I think Mal's going to let him play until he decides himself, which, it's not what I would do, but I'm not a Kangaroo or a New South Wales supporter. So
I just think of how much more Australia get out of some of those weapons they have in their outside backs if Walsh is your fullback. The way he sweeps and he puts fear into the defensive line, and look at the paths he opens up for his outsides. The Broncos benefited from that all year. I would much rather Tedesco running at me than a Reece Walsh. For all Reece Walsh's flaws on defense, I'd much rather Tedesco lining up against me.
And I think before we move on, I think you got to look at the World Cup. In the World Cup in 2025, is James Tedesco your fullback?
No.
So why play him now? Get the young guy in there, because it's not like that. It's not like Union where he's going to get between 10 and 15 games before the World Cup to play internationals. He's got like four games.
He's not my fullback. If I were the coach, he's still young enough where he might be Australia's fullback at that World Cup.
Maybe, but it'd be crazy, I think, if they go in with that. But Mal's the coach, not me. And if the Kangaroos had won in Hamilton, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? So,
well, you look at the week before. He actually didn't look too bad, and he set up a try with a nice grubber. He's not completely hopeless.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm not like saying he needs to never play footy again. Don't get me wrong. But when you got a guy like Reece Walsh, I didn't even think of Ponga. Dally M, I forgot him. I was just thinking of Walsh, going like, what damage could Walsh do for the Kangaroos? But he might never get the chance. He's young enough; he will get the chance.
He will.
But so that was it for the questions. We're trying to make this go as long as we can, because Paul hasn't beat us in a while. So with the last segment of the show, guys, no previews to talk about. So I thought, as I mentioned at the start, we'd talk about season 4 highlights. So I asked Richie just to pick 3 highlights from season 4 of The Standoff, and I've picked as well. We may as well go 1 for 1 rather than rattling off. So I'll go first. Kicking off the year with our 100th episode. It's crazy to even think we'd make it to 100. Thought Paul would have kicked us off by then, at least when I started it back in the day when it was, me and Sanjay at the start, and then there was that long period of time where it was just me blathering on all by myself before you jumped on board. And I assume we're on 139 now, right, Paul? Or are we on 138? You're the mathematician.
I'm just checking, actually. Just checking the.
I don't know. I think there's a few episodes where we've named the same episode number. We get confused. Full disclosure, numbers confuse me. So.
Well, I reckon last week was 135, but so I reckon this is 136. But I will. I'll go back and check. I haven't double Double
I
number.
think you've doubled. It's more than that. It's more than that, I'm sure. I wouldn't fudge it. Hold on. I've got a playlist. I got a playlist of all our episodes.
Oh, you're right.
I am looking this.
We had 2 129s. So there we go. Yes, I'm gonna have to go back and count. So we've got one duplicate at least.
Yeah. So the standoff playlist I've got's got 140 videos in it, but I know one of them is the highlights package Richard made of all my hot takes. As we'd say.
Oh, I don't know if we'd have done that. We should have done the audio version, put it out as a podcast as well.
Yeah, that would have been fantastic. But yeah, and Bjorn said first full season watching you guys has been really enjoyable. It makes a good Wednesday night after work. Appreciate that.
Great to hear that, mate. Well, that's nice to hear.
And then your first highlight, Richie.
For me, the Warriors season and everything around it, and us being able to discuss our team for the first time on the show in a very positive light. So the Up the Waz movement, the return of SJ's form and what should have been a Dally M winning year, a full stadium every home game, the epic home games and all the, everything around that, and just the buzz around the team. So for me, to have a season of the standoff where it caught us off guard, caught us by surprise, and then it just kept going. It didn't dissipate right up until the unfortunate exit in the preliminary. But yeah, for us to go that long talking about the boys in a positive way, awesome.
Yeah, and Jacko says he agrees with Bourne, but that I don't like praise, or so he said once. I'm self-deprecating. I don't enjoy praise at all. Throw all your praise at Richie and Paul, who actually do all the hard work. I just sit here and ramble.
You do hard work, Brad.
Yeah, Brad's shit.
Paul's firing shots to finish.
As the prop of a show, like props in real life, we do all the hard work, but we don't. We've got the halfback sitting here that gets all the money and all the praise. So I don't need it. My second highlight, ramble again, was kind of the same. The rise of the Warriors this year and getting to discuss them in the finals for the first time on the show. And yeah, it was fantastic. If you go back and watch our preseason predictions, we didn't really have a lot of hope. We had hope that there would be some improvement, but not the level we got. So yeah, that was fantastic. Your second highlight.
I couldn't decide between two, so I wrote one. I'm going to mention two really quickly. We're allowed to do that. It's the last episode. So one of the great grand finals of the modern era, and how the biggest grand final comeback, witnessing that and then discussing it on the show, awesome. And then having internationals to discuss and the Kiwis, so a bit of recency bias here, but just tonight getting to talk about the Kangaroos' biggest ever loss, how satisfying. So yeah, that was my two-way tie. Yeah,
and once again, my third's kind of the same. Just getting to talk about internationals again, and fingers crossed it becomes a regular thing every year for both rugby league and this show. We really only got to talk about internationals this year and in the World Cup when the World Cup was on. So hopefully we get a few more there. And your last highlight,
just another season awards show we done. It's always funny seeing what we come up with and then look back at our preseason predictions and how far off the mark we were. I know a lot of them some of them we throw tongue-in-cheek sort of predictions, but some of them we were dead serious and we were miles off. So we'll take a nice break now, and I look forward to doing another set of preseason predictions. And I'm going to challenge myself this coming year to do a bit better.
To get more than one would be good. Get more than one right.
Yeah.
And Paul, do you have any highlights you want to bring up before we let everyone go for our last show?
No, look, let's put the joy for this for me is, well, actually, whilst it was a wet and horrible day, was actually getting up to come and watch a game with you, Brad, and also the good
that
work
you'll never get to do again.
I'll never get to do again. Documenting the good work around you, Shave for a Cure, that you did as well.
Yes, that's a good one.
That was.
I should have mentioned that in a highlight. Yeah.
I lost sight. You guys. So after was it season 4? And here we are. This is the first time I actually met you this year. There's just the fact that this kind of thing brings people together, and we get to meet people, get to chat with people who we wouldn't otherwise know. To me, that's always the highlight of these of these shows.
Yeah, it's probably the only time me and Richie would actually get to talk is doing this show.
Yeah,
friends together. That's
This episode here is probably Jacko's highlight too, because no Super League.
Yeah, exactly. We were going to do it. There was all that news about Super League, but I forgot to research it. So I've saved you, Jacko. But anything else you guys want to add before I do our little sign off?
Well, no, you just come back next week for the Super League special. Not.
So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in tonight and joining us on the standoff with Brad and Richie. That is us for 2023. We haven't discussed when season 5 will start in 2024. We're never really good with that. We kind of just do a chat in a couple of weeks saying, should we start at this date, and then do it. But keep an eye out on social media when we announce the return date. I know I always put it on my Facebook page when we're coming back. As always, if something big happens in between seasons, we'll make special episodes to cover it. No doubt there'll be something real big that happens tomorrow, Richie.
No doubt.
Is the way. But thank you all for joining us again. Thanks, Paul, for all the work you do in the background for all year, and Richie for joining me as well every week, or almost every week this year. You missed a couple. Looking forward to kicking it off all again. It's probably going to be in just a couple of weeks. It's usually February, I think, right?
Yeah,
I think
not too far away.
We'll discuss it. We'll discuss it at some point. But yeah, thank you all once again for joining us, and good night.